Thank you for joining us. This is Reanimated episode 78. My name is Stuart Tiffin, and joining me is the inimitable H.A. Conrad this morning. How's it going?
It's going well. It's summertime. It's fantastic.
Summertime and the living is easy, which is a good thing given all this undead shit going on.
Yep, I am absolutely going to Coney Island today to have a Coney dog.
Good grief.
I know. It's very
Um,
exciting.
how's the quality?
There? Oh, it's
Yeah,
excellent. It's like, if you're gonna do it, go there. And then
fantastic.
and then ride the Wonder Wheel.
Um, we are in a glut, I would call it, H.A. A glut of content because of San Diego Comic-Con. This week. It's been kind of bananas how much shit is coming out onto the internets, whether it be Star Wars or Batman and Superman and the everything in between. Have you been overwhelmed?
I have had moments of disagreement where everybody's sort of like, "This is the greatest thing ever," and not totally on board with all of that. I was very excited about the Star Wars trailer, the behind the scenes, so that was awesome and made me very happy. And then I've watched a lot of the different Walking Dead sneak peeks and trailers. So I've been kind of taking it in, but not overwhelmed. Just kind of really excited. In some cases. So yeah, so we have a lot to talk about today. But before we get to that, we should mention that this episode, like all of our episodes, is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform. You can create your own website with it. We use it for Reanimated. It has a lot of different tools, so you can customize it as you see fit. And if you're a first-time user and fan of our show, throw in the offer code ZOMBIE, which is not case sensitive, and you'll get 10% off your purchase. So thank you, Squarespace. But before we so how do we want to tackle this, because there is an awful lot of news items and some which we even left off. I
Yeah.
don't know if you caught the Pride and Prejudice and Zombies trailer, which was actually a little better than I thought, but exactly what you would expect in some cases. Matt Smith is being very Matt Smith about it. So so
Who's
that
Matt
that's
Smith?
Matt Smith is he played the Doctor Who.
You can't just name drop Doctor Who's and expect me to know who they are.
Well, I was hoping that by this time, by osmosis, you might get the reference, but so there was stuff like that that dropped, and then there's other stuff that I thought was pretty cool. So, are you ready to take a deep dive into some of these little items?
It's hopefully less deep in some cases, as in number one on our list,
Yeah,
Burying the X, which is it's not really a zom-com. It's more of like it's a
Zomcom
comedy.
satire.
It's a comedy about a guy whose ex-girlfriend, who he was about to break up with, coming back from the dead, and so he's kind of like the joke is he's stuck in this horrible relationship forever and ever, and she's a zombie, and things are getting pretty nasty.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was fine. It's exactly what you would expect, but it looked, you know what? There's some good one-liners in there. I just hope they didn't use them all for the trailer. So I'm totally gonna see this.
Yeah, I feel like the trailer probably should have been shorter.
Yeah. Do you find, and this is something we can talk about a little bit later on, as we move down our list of sneak peeks and trailers, but I feel like trailers either don't give enough information, like they're not teasery enough, I suppose,
Yeah.
but then suddenly, as you get closer to the release of whatever it is, suddenly they reveal way too much. And then it's sort of like, well, what's the point of going and seeing that? And that's kind of how I felt. That's kind of how I felt about this one.
Yeah, this one is too long. You feel like you get the entire plot and all the relationships, and so yeah, it's like no, I don't need to see this movie. It feels like by the end of it, and definitely I got this vibe also with the season six trailer that we're
Oh
gonna talk
yeah,
about later.
definitely. Well, that and also the new Fear the Walking Dead. I felt like their big trailer after all these months of really not giving too much away. I feel like they've given the whole store away. So
Maybe
anyway,
I think there's
um,
still a lot of room to I don't know because there's still characters that we don't even know how they're all kind of like connected, but um, we'll see. Anyway, so one of our few non trailer related news items this week is Number two on our list, Greek burial sites that were discovered and are being written about now, where a small percentage of ancient Greek burials from the Sicilian graveyard. I forget even how old these sites are, but like a small percentage of the bodies buried in this area are buried in a way to prevent the person from coming back from the dead. So it's pretty cool. It's old school zombie
Yeah.
memorabilia, and you've got like corpses buried on their stomachs or on their sides and pinned down with objects, and it's a kind of a I don't know. It's kind of awesome.
Well, it's kind of awesome, except while I was reading this, one thing that came to mind is that perhaps they did this because the people weren't maybe dead when they did this to them. And so part of me, because some of this, they have a couple of, like there's different tablets, and some of the things that the tablets say, there's like different curses that these undead people are possibly supposed to like either keep them in the grave, or they're supposed to come out and do some kind of justice, against enemies or things like that. And then that's what had me worried, is like, oh, what if the reason why they did this is because they weren't actually dead when they put them there. So anyway, that's where my dark mind went.
Yeah. The other even worse part is one of the bodies that they found had signs of malnutrition,
Yeah.
which maybe a lot of people had back in the day. But it also kind of led to like maybe these were people with disabilities that then were just cast out as pariahs in their community, and then even after death were considered to be, you
Scary and
know,
evil. Yeah.
nasties. Yeah.
Well,
So
and because that's a lot of the thing, people with epilepsy were often thought to be possessed or have different things, or schizophrenia. Like a lot of mental illnesses initially were viewed as being people that were possessed by spirits or that kind of thing, and so they didn't get great treatment, and in fact got this kind of treatment. So so part of this was a bit dark, but kind of crazy that they could actually piece this together. So yeah, a little dark news item for our listeners.
it's the best kind though for Reanimated.
Indeed. But moving on from the death and the darkness, even more death and darkness, but this one given to us by zombie kangaroos. So this is what I'm talking about is it's a short horror film called Waterborne, and it was produced in Australia, created in Australia, and I thought it was actually pretty good. What did you think?
Yeah, it's fine.
It's almost 10 minutes long, and it's pretty easy. They did this, and I believe because as a result of how well received this was, they got funding to do a longer feature, which is kind of cool.
I assume that was what they were going after. So they got the original funds through Indiegogo to make
Yep.
this short. I hope it isn't really a kangaroo zombie movie, though.
Well, I think it's a little bit more than that. They just happened to use the kangaroo in this particular thing, so it's supposed to be like
Yeah.
a waterborne something or other.
And this was always, for the short at least, was like the whole premise was, okay, it's going to be a zombie movie with kangaroos, because that was what they spent most of the money on from their, was the puppet was like
Yeah, the animatronic.
$17,000.
Yeah, and also their posters and things like that. It looks very 28 Days Later, but with a kangaroo instead of that symbol. But it definitely has some it mirrors it, which is kind of cool.
Kangaroos are dangerous though. I mean, even if they're not zombies, I forget which ones, like the red ones or the giant ones, they'll split you open. They'll like carve you up.
Yep, they will.
So
So
it's a legit horror creature. It's just that it's also comes across a little bit absurd, which is a tough line to walk with zombies. Anything.
Well, not. I mean, there are a ton of absurd zombie films out there, so I think that you can do that. I don't think that this is totally meant to be taken seriously based upon the puppets that are used, but I thought it was fun. I would watch something else by these folks, but it would be, I don't know. I think this works much better as a short film, and so hopefully whatever they come up with next is a little bit more interesting from a longer feature point of view. So, but I would
Yeah.
watch it. I think it had a good sense of humor. It was a good execution. So it's as I said in a previous podcast, it's great that it's you're able to do and fund these projects for independent filmmakers because then you get this kind of thing out of it. But the concern is that you get crap as well. So I'm hoping that this does not turn into crap. I guess that's my point.
I hope that the guy who made or whoever it was that made the baby zombie with the balloon
Yeah,
movie, remember that short? I'm
yeah.
hoping that those guys got a follow-on project based on that short because that was really strong.
And that was much better than this one. This one was a little bit sillier. That one was actually like really, I thought, well executed and scary and horrifying and puts you really into that position.
Hmm.
So we'll see. But and also I will point out that the weapon loading piece of this particular short drove me nuts.
Yeah,
So because it just took forever.
takes a long time. Man, well, the last time we talked, and the last few times we've talked, um, I've been complaining about the lack of real content coming out about this TV show and about release dates. We knew, I think the last time we talked, we knew that it was going to be the summer. We might have known it was going to be August, but now suddenly this past week, there's just been, I, by my count, 5 or 6 different trailers or teaser trailers that have come out. Some of which are showing footage from the TV show, some of which are just purely promotional and showing like California or suburban American life, and then here's a zombie. And those ones I thought were pretty, even though they're not showing the show, they're doing the job I think that they need to be doing.
I did feel like it was what I was just saying. I think some of the little teaser trailers were great, and I got excited as I was going through and watching them. But then the extended trailer, which is what they showed at San Diego Comic-Con, to me it almost showed a little bit too much. I mean, we get different parts of this. We get that it's a family, the different things leading up to the events that we see, in Walking Dead are happening in LA, and it's a family that's separated. So I feel like they almost give you a little bit too much
Yeah.
information. After not giving us any. And I feel like it's sort of like they just totally went in the opposite direction. And it's, I'm glad to have more information. I'm looking forward to watching this. But I wish they hadn't revealed quite so much. Because they pretty much, they've revealed a lot about some of the main characters. Like what's going to happen to them.
Yeah.
And that to me,
But
it's like, come
it's
on.
only the pilot. That's all they're showing us so
I
far.
know, but still. I don't
But
know.
yeah, still. But the first few trailers that they released were all like perfect as far as appetite wetters, and one of
Right.
them I feel like is only 15 seconds long. The one
Right.
with the
The
missing
running.
posters.
Oh, the
Oh,
missing. I thought it was the running away thing, where you just get like 30
yeah,
seconds of that.
that one's good.
That's pretty good.
That's the Nick's escape. And then there's yeah, I guess they're all really short. So the Nick's escape is 30 seconds. The reports in 5 states kid and Kim Dickens telling him like just stop looking at the internet all the time.
Right. Actually, the trailer that I thought was really effective was there's the one where you're in suburbia and everybody's just kind of doing their thing. It's
Yeah,
that
that
one
one and the
was good.
skateboard one are
Yep.
both. I feel like, of course, yeah. They try to suspend some disbelief by
Yep.
when that zombie just shows up behind the lady, and people have been walking down that stretch of the sidewalk.
With no reaction. Yep.
And absolutely no react. Yeah, but and then you get into the long one where you see a lot of these other things spliced into it. First of all, you got Nick. You figure out more about his situation, and maybe this is what you're not enjoying is the fact that now he was um, in like a flop house,
Hmm.
and you know, and the fact that Kim Dickens is I don't know. They're both teachers, which I find interesting.
Yep.
Her and Cliff Curtis are playing teachers, so that's gonna I don't know, like with Rick, you've got the whole cop angle and how that that mechanic and how that works with as far as the dynamic goes. But features, I mean, sure, you've got authority in characters like that, but what else as far as survival goes? And it'll be interesting to see.
I suspect he or she has some other background other than being a teacher.
Maybe.
I think that's the way they're going to have to play that.
I mean, do they have to, or don't you feel like there have been people of many different backgrounds in the Walking Dead
Well,
original show?
there have, but you don't usually have two characters with the exact same background, so they're going to have to do something to make it a little more interesting.
Maybe, yeah. And they obviously we know that they have, like you said, a separated family in more than one respect. Like he's trying to get his kid to come for his custody weekend, and then you've got an actual family separated physically in the course of the preview.
Right.
So I don't know. I see what you're saying. Like it did maybe show us a little bit too much when it gets into the riot stuff. They could have maybe just let it ride, and we could have gotten there, and you know,
Right, and I mean we already know they get separated. They some of them have to take shelter, and they get let in. We already know that they get let in. Do you know what I mean? Like they reveal a lot where they get let in by this shopkeeper, and they're like, "We have to shelter the storm here," and so
not
it's
just any shopkeeper. That's Ruben Blades.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. But so they're doing all this reveal, which I feel could be better utilized as you can give a sneak peek to this stuff, but I feel like they've laid out a little bit too much. But that's okay. And speaking of laying out a little bit too much, wait, we want to talk about the fact that they're dropping this August 23rd.
August 23rd, which is, and it's only 2 months before, or less than 2 months, because then the season six premiere
Right.
is October 11th, I think.
Yep. And
Uh,
then
s-
yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see.
they're going to be they're going to be running at the same time. They have
Yeah,
to be,
which is like,
right? Or maybe not. It's
well,
only six. It's only 6 episodes,
I
so
was
maybe
going to
they'll be
say
done.
this is a shorter season. It's not. It's similar to when Walking Dead did their initial season. So,
Oh man.
but the Walking Dead trailer for season 6, I felt just shows way too much. Just a lot, and it's like I'm never going to be upset about seeing anything Walking Dead related, but this is, to me, it just lays out so much of what's going to happen in that season, and I think reveals a little bit too much.
I really don't even get the point. It's like they're obviously they're teasing story arcs for the
Right.
new season. They're teasing Wolves. They're teasing Morgan.
Yep.
We don't know what anybody like. There's a lot of people talking like Rick is a bad influence. Rick is the best guy. It's just all this trouble in Alexandria shit, and I don't need to know about that ahead of
Yeah, no,
time.
that's what I'm saying. Like they're revealing a little bit too much, and you know. So it's fine, and they always do this, but you know.
Yeah, I tend not to watch the honestly. I tend not to watch the season trailers because I don't. Yeah, it's like at the end of the show, I don't like really like to see scenes from the next episode. I prefer to go in
Cold, yeah.
cold.
No, I agree with you on that one. Especially given the tendency to give a little bit too much away.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So there is that all Walking Dead news. Of course, we're gonna still watch all of this and be happy about it. So, I didn't know
Yeah,
why.
and eventually we'll probably do our season four review at some point.
Yeah, I guess we should probably get to that, huh? But in other new series news, the Ash versus Evil Dead San Diego Comic Con trailer was dropped, and I have to say it makes me really happy to see Bruce Campbell. I know you have different feelings about Evil Dead, but I thought that this was hilarious.
This is a good trailer. Well, that's not true. This trailer made me laugh in its first scene and its last scene, and I
Yes.
guess that's as much as I can ask for in a Evil Dead trailer.
It makes me happy for Bruce Campbell. He's still awesome. So I got kind of excited for this. And I will absolutely watch this. So
Didn't you
that's
have trouble while watching this trailer, like picturing a whole TV show this
I
intense?
did I did have trouble thinking, and in fact I was thinking, wow, what are they going to do with a series of this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm not clear what they plan to do. And how you like, is it just going to be one series? Like, how do you sustain this?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I know it's Showtime, and they don't shy away from projects of this scale, or certainly not of like if you saw Spartacus, they're totally into buckets of blood,
yeah,
and lots of male frontal nudity, in fact. But I don't know that we're gonna see that in this series.
I know, but
But
it's got some good folks in it. In addition to Bruce Campbell, it has Lucy Lawless, which is pretty awesome.
who's also from Spartacus? She's
Yep,
apparently just like Showtime TV
darling.
favorite now. Yeah.
Um, I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure how this is going to last. My guess is this maybe lasts a season or two, but who knows? I actually there's other series that have come out that I've been skeptical of that have lasted a lot longer. But for something this intense and gory, and also kind of kitschy and campy, I'm not sure that it has legs. But I will reserve my judgment until I actually start watching it.
I like that the two other people on the cast that we kind of get introduced to in the trailer are to me unknown, which is always nice.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I like about the Fear the Walking Dead stuff too. It's like, okay, cool, new actors to get to know. Um, so they're very kind of like fresh young faces who I have never seen in anything, and that doesn't happen all the time.
right. And with this initial season, 10 episodes. That's not insanely long, but keep in mind, Fear the Walking Dead only has 6. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, I feel like 10 or 6 is maybe a little short, but 10 is probably a really good number.
That's a good number. If it's
Once you get into the 20s, it's like
yeah.
unsustainable.
Yeah, and these are actually pretty short episodes, so they're only 30 minutes apiece.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're going to keep it short and sweet. So we'll see what happens with this. But yeah. So that is that for all of our trailers and things like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, put together all those videos, it's like 30 minutes
I
of
know.
straight watching, but there is some pretty cool stuff out there. I mean, I feel like anybody who hasn't seen all this Fear the Walking Dead stuff's been living under a rock, but uh, among all the other trailers that got released at San Diego Comic-Con, I wouldn't be surprised if some of them got past some people. So we'll try to throw up some links in the show notes for once, and let everybody get a gander of that. And but for now, before we get into the meat of our review, which is, by the way, I don't think we've mentioned what we're reviewing, because also the last time we got together, we talked about reviewing a book,
Yes,
and then we had a course correction,
we did.
and we are reviewing Resident Evil: Afterlife.
Yep.
So that will be our review. But first, AJ, I wanted to take a minute here and ask you a very serious question.
Sure.
Now that you've been to Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water, would you recommend it as a zombie holdout in the apocalypse?
I would not. No. No, it's
Um,
structurally unsound.
all of his buildings leak in the roof department, but
Uh,
how unsound is it?
Well, I mean, they've done a massive rehab on it, and I don't know how much you know about the house, but when he initially made the plans for it, because it's all cantilevered into sort of the rock behind the house. And he and the person who commissioned it, Edgar Kaufman Sr., had arguments about how much steel was needed for support and reinforcement. And in fact, some of the people who were overseeing the project actually snuck additional steel into it because Frank Lloyd Wright was being so stubborn. And even with that, it was sagging and in pretty rough shape. And so it was an interesting tour because the Kaufman family, the son, Edgar Kaufman Jr., donated the house and all of its lands to the Pennsylvania Conservancy. And I think most likely the reason why he donated the house to the Conservancy was because he had no money left and he knew it needed a major rehab. And the Conservancy is like, no, it was this wonderful, generous donation. And in fact, they had to put millions of dollars into making sure that the house didn't fall into the water.
Oh, wow.
So, and even now, I mean, they have to there's like leaks and mildew and things like that. And it is an amazing, I'm not it is an amazing feat, and when you see it and when you see it from a distance, it's incredible. But part of me is like, I wonder if given modern technology and materials, what they could do with it today. You know what I mean? Like if they tried to execute it today, what would that look like?
That's an interesting question because, yeah, a lot of, like I said, Frank Lloyd Wright's houses, and I've done his walking tour out in, or a walking tour out in outskirts of Chicago, and there's like 15 of his houses in a couple blocks of Chicago's suburban land,
Yep.
and all of them have kind of
Problems. Yeah.
structural problems. And I don't know if it's like a sign of him not being the architect that people kind of put him up on the pedestal to be, because honestly, you look at his houses and they're amazing. They look fantastic, but they almost all have leaky roofs.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. I think he was an amazing dreamer, and I think he was amazing in terms of his vision. You're right. Like, I agree with that. When you look at these buildings, there is an incredible feeling to them. And Falling Water is like that. However, just because of the things that they had to do with it, it's, I think he was a better dreamer than executor, if that makes sense. Like, I think he needed more engineers involved in the projects, and because of the strength of his will, I think sometimes the engineers that were involved sort of got ignored. But yeah, but for a zombie holdout, no, I could not recommend. I think the whole thing would fall apart.
One thing I noticed about his design, I don't know, trend is though, and going back to the zombie thing, is his on the frontage of a house, at least when he's building it on a street, not like Falling Water, which I can't even picture like if it's on just like a long driveway or if it's just built in the middle of the woods, which is kind of how I always picture it in my head.
It's built in the middle of the woods, but and part of when you go up there, one of the things it's like you're just imagining how did they do all of this? Like how did they get anything through here? Because it's a pretty long walk into where this was, and they actually opened up a mine to mine all of the stone, the sandstone that was used. They opened up a mine on the land.
Wow.
So there's like all sorts of crazy stuff surrounding it. It is a crazy endeavor. But, I don't know. I've never actually been to the Chicago walking tour, which I guess I should probably do.
No, it's worth it. Yeah. There's a lot of good architecture tours in Chicago, though. The boat one is really good, the river tour, and then the one in Oak Park is good too. There's a church there that he designed, as well as like I said, 15 houses in the prairie bootleg style. But one thing you notice when you do that tour is his predilection for not having windows on the front of the house, or having very small windows.
Yep.
And
that's here
keeping
too.
the main entrance off of the front of the house too. Like when you look at some of his houses, only in a couple of cases do they actually look like fortresses.
Right. And in this case, I mean, they kind of say that some of what he did, and I may or may not agree with this, but the hallways are extraordinarily narrow. So it's to force you into the other spaces in the house is what they said. But then when you go into the other spaces, the windows are, as you said, pretty small. And I don't know. It's an interesting idea. And I'm not sure always what his thinking was about the small windows.
Yeah, who knows? But I look at them and I can't help but think like, arrow slits or like defensible. I'm sure that wasn't even it wasn't even anything on his mind. However,
I think you're coming up with
architecture-
I think you're coming up with a new Pride and Prejudice and Zombies idea. Frank Lloyd Wright,
Frank Lloyd Wright,
zombie fortress builder.
zombie, yeah, defensive structure designer. What have you been up to though, other than that? And I'm mostly talking about TV watching because there's a lot of cool stuff on right now. What have you been?
I've watched Mr. Robot, which I don't know if you've caught yet.
I haven't seen it, but I've seen trailers, I guess.
It's reminding me a lot of Fight Club, and without saying more about it, there's just pieces of it that it's questionable whether it's in reality or not. But it's an interesting show. It's a little off kilter. I've been enjoying that. And then The Strain season 2 is coming out this week. I think the second season is premiering
tonight.
Is it
Yeah,
tonight?
Today's the 12th.
12th.
It's coming out tonight. Yeah.
So that, and then I did finish up watching iZombie, and there's still parts that I like, still parts that I don't. but it's kitschy and fun, and I think it's light enough for people to enjoy. But what are you doing? I hear you've been playing a lot of a certain game.
Oh yeah, no, I honestly, yeah, Keith has been kicking my ass in Quiz Up on topics like California and
Wait,
uh,
he's been kicking your butt on that?
yeah, yeah.
Well, at least it
Keith,
makes him feel
Keith, it turns
better.
out is something of a savant in terms of Quiz Up. So yeah, more power to you, Keith. No, what I've been up to is yeah, playing a lot of The Witcher 3. Speaking of games I'm playing, but that being an aside, there are zombies in that game, but still, TV wise, The Last Ship came back. I know I talked about this a lot when it had its first season. No zombies in it, but it is like an apocalypse show.
Yeah. I have
And
not.
Mike,
I told you I watched the first few. I have not finished watching it, and I probably should because you have said great things about it.
great, I feel like should be in quotes. It's a good show though, and I like the cast, and I the story is Michael Bay big, right? But it's not Michael Bay stupid. It's not like you know. But I like the plot, and
I feel that that should be a tagline: Michael Bay big, but not Michael Bay stupid.
I'm sure he would love that
That
one.
that would be such a great review for the show. No.
Yeah, but they've maintained this like big naval theme. It can get a little bit rah rah, like we're America sometimes, and that's kind of a little overdone. But they're introducing characters from different countries who are not bad guys, which is a very generous uh, move on some level. I've also been watching this BBC show called Humans, which is
It,
about robots.
I heard that that was very good. It,
It's very good, yeah, and
it
it's only
kind of
four
creeps me out a
episodes.
little bit, but
Oh yeah, I think it's kind of supposed to by turns creep you out about AI and really creep you out about this concept of having robot helpers around and what that'll do to us as a society. So it's super not zombie related, but it's a very well done show. And there's four episodes out. I don't know if they're going to be pumping more out anytime soon.
did you ever watch Ex Machina? Did you get around to that?
I have not yet.
You should watch that.
It does seem to, at least from the
Fit
stills
in.
I've seen, yeah, be on. And then, so The Strain, I'm somewhat excited for that. We'll have to see. True Detective, though, has been super awesome this season. At least I
Really,
like it.
I've been feeling pretty meh about it.
Hmm.
I thought that, and I just feel like they're maybe it will get better, but I don't. I feel like I'm getting a very Twin Peaks feel from it right now.
A little bit. It's very moody.
It's very moody, and again, it's sort of one of those shows where are some things real, or some things imagined? It's not clear to me yet, and it feels very disjointed. And some of the narratives I'm not necessarily on board with. So I'm giving it
Really
a
liking
chance.
Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn's character is awesome.
His character is
Or his
awesome.
performance, rather.
Yeah, no, his character is okay. I just compare again, and this is probably wrong of me to compare too much to the first season of True Detective, but I felt like Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey had a certain energy and honestly a chemistry between them that I'm not sensing from any of the characters here yet. I think Vince Vaughn is doing a great one-off performance, but I'm not really getting that kind of interaction yet. Maybe that's the point, but
I feel a certain simpatico between Colin Farrell and the female lead. Who was her name? Amy Adams? Is that who that is?
yeah. But I'm not getting it yet. But I will.
Yeah,
I'm still. I have a feeling maybe this week it will change that for me. So
we'll see. Either way, I've just kind of listing shit I've been watching. And then there's a couple of sci-fi shows that have come around. Dark Matter and Killjoys, and neither of them are very good. They're both like, yeah, they're not that good. They come out on the same night as Defiance, another sci-fi show that I would say
yeah.
is not that good, but
Nope.
got a lot of sci-fi on TV right now that is watchable.
Yep. An awful lot of sci-fi. So. But that's good for us generally, right?
In general, I am a big fan of having more
Lots of
sci-fi.
sci-fi.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of the roundup. Otherwise, just been wrangling a 2-year-old.
Well, that's sci-fi enough too, right?
It is.
sometimes. But we're reviewing Resident Evil Afterlife, and this is the fourth installment of the Resident Evil film series franchise. It got not the best reviews. However, it ended up making more than all the other films, I think, combined.
Not combined, but
Okay, but
no, it made more than all the other films. Yes,
it made more than all the other films. So it 296 million, a little bit over that and change, worldwide, which is not shabby. So
considering they only spent 60 million on it and they brought in
right.
300 million, yeah, I think they're
Right,
pretty
they're
happy.
doing okay. Although Mia Jovovich has said of the franchise that, okay, I'm gonna take care of like my money making stuff with these films. It's interesting because she would sometimes get kind of sensitive about these films and get hurt when the critics panned it. But I don't know what she thought was going to happen. These are any kind of film like this, any action horror film that is and especially a sci-fi action horror film, it's not like the critics ever take these seriously. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But this was written and directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, and it came out in 2010. So and we see sort of some of the people from the previous film come in to play, like Ali Larter.
But she's the only one, right?
She's the only one. They reference other people, but they kind of continue where they left off in the last.
Oh, I
film.
guess is Kmart played by the same?
Yeah, Kmart
person?
is too. So
Okay. Yeah, but so this film got 23% on Rotten Tomatoes. So, like you said, critics were like, "No, this is dumb."
right.
What is your initial overarching reaction review?
I mean,
Is it dumb or is it good?
eh, it's a Resident Evil film. It's sort of like this is my thing. It's sort of like you don't go to this film to see like high art and drama. You go to see really cool fighting scenes and silly effects, and there's like a tongue-in-cheek reference to the game, and I think they do all of that here. It's not. It's a summer action film, or I guess a winter action film, depending on when it comes out. But I think that it's supposed to feel kind of like you're going through different levels of a video game. I felt like that was the case. It's still on the trail of the Umbrella Corporation, and it also is supposed to me, it's supposed to get more and more outlandish, which it did. So I feel like it accomplished all of those things. Am I going to say that I enjoyed it? Like, I thought that, with some of the things that they reveal in the first film and the first couple of films, I thought that those were a little bit more successful. But, I think you know what you're getting into, or you should know what you're getting into when you're seeing this franchise. So,
What about when you compare it with the one we watched before this, Extinction?
I honestly thought it was a little bit better than Extinction.
I thought it was a lot better than Extinction.
So that's my gut feeling, and just generally it was the storyline was a little easier to follow and a little bit more believable. But again, it's sort of that disjointed thing where you're like, okay, I know where I am watching this. So
I feel like they rediscovered or just went back to the well of like industrial techno music and
right.
slow motion jumping scenes, and
slow
they
motion
played
ridiculous jumping scenes.
Yeah.
And also introducing certain monsters and things like that, which are going to get a big rise out of you. I.e., the big axe wielding guy. Come on,
Yeah, he's
that's
good.
like that's so great. So
But, say this movie opens with kind of an absurd scene where the writers are just like, okay, last film we introduced like 100 clones, so that's unsustainable. We have to get rid of the clones. I feel like that was what they said in the writers' room,
and they're
so
like, okay, let's do that from the beginning.
The first 15 minutes of this movie are not only an homage to the Matrix, which it totally feels like the Matrix, like running up walls with machine gun bullets impacting around them. Albert Wesker looks like an agent with his glasses and his Desert Eagle, and his demeanor. Were you vibing on that at all?
Yeah, I was vibing. That was good.
It was hardcore The Matrix, except it was 10 years afterwards.
But
in
I
our
thought it was a little bit on purpose with that. Like I thought they were. It was a tongue-in-cheek reference.
that
That
didn't
was
feel very tongue in cheek. It felt like tongue out of mouth, like in
okay.
your
Well, maybe
face,
tongue out of
blowing
mouth in your
raspberries.
face. Yeah, no, and maybe that's what it was.
So yeah, they had bullet time, they had wall running,
They had
and
sunglasses and
and
long leather
sunglasses.
coats.
Yeah, and at the end though, that dastardly evil man Albert Wesker manages to escape, and Mia Jovovich's body armor has a belly button. These were my takeaways.
I did like um, Miller, who plays Redfield. What's his face?
Wentworth,
Yeah,
the guy from Prison Break.
yeah, and like I thought that having him imprisoned was pretty funny.
That was very funny.
And then his whole line, he's like, I know how to get out of here," which was like, that was kind of cool. Um, but
The whole intro with Alaska and her flying that plane around, there was definitely some stuff that was just like completely unbelievable. Flying from Alaska to LA and back, or
yeah,
back and forth in a tiny airplane.
yeah, and where's the fuel?
Yeah. And landing the prison. I mean, a lot of this stuff was just like it stretches the capacity of belief, but they pay enough of they nod at it enough where they're like, this is crazy, I can't believe she's doing this, she's landing up an airplane on the roof of this building. It's like, okay, yeah, you said it, so I believe you now, and we'll just move on.
Right.
It doesn't mean I'm going to believe that Kim Coates could have taken off that plane from the roof, but that's cool.
Yeah. And then I also liked the appearance of the modified Dobermans. I thought that
Yeah.
was pretty funny because it's just
Yeah.
sort of like those are always sort of apart, and then they just made them look ridiculous. So
Were
that was
there
cool.
zombie dogs in the second movie?
Yeah,
Trying to
there were.
remember.
That's the one
Um,
where they're rescuing the little girl, right? In the Raccoon City.
yeah.
Don't you remember? There's like a whole scene
In
where
the school.
Yep,
They're in the school. Okay.
yep,
Yep. So they've made it into every movie. That's pretty crazy.
yep.
So yeah, Kim Coates is kind of like the bad guy, or like the asshole in the prison. He's the Hollywood producer, and he for those who watch Sons of Anarchy, is recognizable as playing Tig on that show. And he's kind of an awesome actor. I like seeing him. He plays an unlikable person way too easily.
Yeah.
It's probably unfortunate, but he's awesome. Trying to remember if I liked anybody else. Wentworth Miller, of course, is pretty cool. He's a little bit too cool for school. The way the stuff breaks down in the prison is a little dumb.
Hmm.
The prison has some interesting things like torches everywhere.
Yeah.
Like there's five survivors in the prison, and
All I could think was, who designed this prison?
probably
Like,
like a million torches that are all lit. I'm like, whose job is that?
right.
There's a scene where Luther, what's the basketball player's name?
Luther, yeah.
Something Luther. He like walks outside to look down on the over the gate, and he's carrying a torch, and there's torches all around him. It's just there's this torch thing that I don't know. I'm probably harping on it too much, but there are so many freaking torches everywhere. 5,000 torches, and he's walking around with a torch when he's got torches on every wall. Like he's showing Alice the basement, I think. And they're walking downstairs,
Yep.
and he's like carrying a torch, and yet there's a torch every 5 feet.
Yep.
So anyway, um,
And I also the character of Crystal Waters, and she's like a swimmer. Ugh.
well, her character's only there to be fodder.
Yeah, of course she is.
That one, I
You knew
get.
you knew the minute she was like announcing this particular skill that she was goner. So that was pretty good.
She's in this movie to have two lines
Yep.
and then die in a stupid way. Not stupid, but like she gets through the underwater tunnel and then immediately gets killed.
Yep.
So dumb. The death I didn't understand was the Latino soldier, and I don't remember his name. The guy, he's like kind of a badass. He basically helps Alice not die when she lands on the prison roof,
Was
and
that
then
Angel?
yeah, it might have been Angel. And then he gets shot by the movie producer for absolutely no reason.
No reason at all, which I didn't understand either.
He's like, hey, so I'm gonna try and fix this truck. Oh, damn, I can't fix the truck. And so Tig, I call him Tig, Kim Coates is like, well, I think I have another plan. Bang, shoots him and then runs away. I'm like, why did you didn't have to, you could have just run away. He wasn't gonna stop you.
Right.
Oh, well,
But the other thing I really liked about this was that we get a peek at Jill Valentine again. So,
well, after the final credits,
yep.
yeah, that's kind of the only reason I knew who that was is because I went and read the Wikipedia page. Like, how am I supposed to?
Remember
I
it
feel like
after
didn't
this
she have
many.
really short hair in the first film we saw her in?
Yeah, she had shorter hair, so it's like she looks a little
It
different.
doesn't look anything. I was like, okay, I don't know who that is. Just wearing a jumpsuit and has one of those mind control things. I did notice that they seem to kill every character of color,
They did, as usual.
except that Luther. Luther apparently didn't die, but they made it seem as if he was dead, and
They
so
did, and then they show you that he's not dead. So, that was good.
yeah. But once you end up with Wentworth Miller, Ali Larter, and Mia Jovovich, it's just like, oh, okay, so the intern died in a stupid way because he was a stupid character. The Latino guy was killed. Luther's apparently been killed.
I know.
Curious.
It is curious. But par for the course. For these films, especially.
Well, in these films, it's whenever Alice comes into contact with a group of survivors, everybody,
Everybody dies,
everybody dies.
generally.
Yeah. But I do enjoy the trope of a group of survivors just surrounded by a mob, like a crazy amount of zombies. Kind of like Dawn of the Dead. If she landed her plane on the roof of that mall, it wouldn't have been a very different situation. They were eventually going to get in there, you know.
I do like how this gets 23% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is, and one of the comments is that it's as dim-witted and lifeless as its undead antagonists. So that was interesting.
And yet I don't feel that it is dim-witted and lifeless. It's
No, what's interesting, so that's sort of the overall, aggregate score. But then it's sort of like as a fan, a lot of people were saying, look, it's what it is, and it's similar to what you and I had said.
What's the audience score?
Theirs is 49%.
Which is probably closer to, yeah.
Right.
It's not an awesome movie, but it definitely, like you said, it is what you expect it to be. You go to see this in the theater, you're gonna basically get what you want.
Right. I don't think you're going to see serious. You're going to see silly and ridiculous and outlandish. So I think it succeeds.
Yeah. Yeah. So by the end of the movie, though, you've got boss fights, which actually the boss fights are pretty good.
Yep.
The giant axe guy fight in the shower room. There's a lot of slow-mo. There's a lot of shotguns packed with quarters.
Yep. No, the executioner guy is good. I liked him. But yeah, I don't think that there's I think that it was a lot better than the last film. And I don't the critics of this and even poor Mia Jovovich is sort of like, it's not you know what you're getting. I mean, look at the franchise and look at how many of these there are. And you're not going to, like... I don't know that there's a question about what you're going to see. And I think even if you don't know the franchise, you could walk into this and still have fun if you know that it's sort of like a mindless action film.
There's some fun stuff at the final boss fight with Wesker, too.
Yeah, that was so ridiculous.
It's a ridiculous fight scene, but it's like his first attack is by throwing his sunglasses.
I know, and you see the reflections. Oh, so ridiculous.
It's fun. I kind of...
But especially with that scene, I mean, there's other parts of it where I felt this, but especially with that scene, I feel like you're watching that level of a video game play out.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the different ways that they try to get rid of him that don't work, and so you have to like figure out what's the next best mode of attack. So I thought that was cool. And then, different things get thrown in their way. So I don't know. I kind of like that scene. I like the return to that stark white of the Umbrella Corp that we're used to.
That's always nice to go into, but it's it's gonna get bad.
Of course it is, but it's just sort of this, So I was not minding this as outlandish and insane as it was, and I kind of liked it because it was so insane, the ending scene. So
You mean the scene after the credit, or no, the end scene when they're flying in that giant
yeah,
herd of.
yeah, it's so insane. You're just like, okay,
Yeah, there's like 100 aircraft each
yeah,
one filled with Umbrella guys, and Alice and Chris Redfield and Claire Redfield are standing there like, okay, I guess we have to
figure out what we're gonna do now.
save the world again.
Yep.
And so they get to save the world again with Resident Evil: Retribution, a film that did not quite make as much money, but still made a lot.
Yes.
And we will get to that review once HA is recovered from having to review this one.
Yes, that's true. So yeah. If you have any thoughts about this particular installment of Resident Evil Afterlife, please throw us a note, a line. You can do that on reanimatedpodcast.com, or email us at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. Is that correct?
Come on, dude! It's been like years.
I know, but it's been a little while since I announced it, so yeah. And then, or you can tweet at us, Reanimated PCast, on the Twitters.
So thank you for listening to our review of Resident Evil Afterlife, and join us again next time when we get together on Reanimated to discuss the second season premiere of The Strain, Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan's trilogy of novels that have been made into a television show about vampire zombies in New York. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
You want to try that again?
No, it's perfect. It's exactly how I wanted it to sound.
All right.
Long pauses. Like that one.
Sweet. All right. Until next time. Ciao.
Goodbye.